Hi folks, so I've probably set myself up to fail a little bit here in that for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I have videoed one of our reports, so it might make sense for those of you listening on your podcast platform, it might make sense to go to YouTube and have a look at the video. Just search for Ask the R podcast and that will pop up on there. So I'm going to try and be descriptive through the podcast, but like I say, it'll be a lot more obvious on the video exactly what is going on. So exactly what is a tree survey? So we generate inquiries into the company, and they come through to our head office here, and Carolyn and Lucy in the office do their best to try and explain to people exactly what a tree survey is. But listen, I get it. You're not really that interested in what exactly is a tree survey. You just want to get your planning back on track, and it's a box that you need to tick. So why am I recording this video? I'm recording this video and this podcast in the hope that forewarned is forearmed, and that when you go out to market, you'll know exactly what it is that you're looking for, because there's a lot of complex terminology gets thrown around. So exactly what is a tree survey? A tree survey, for the purposes of a planning application, is basically formed of several different parts, and it's the first two parts that we're going to talk about today. So there's the site works, the tree survey itself, and then there's what's known as an arboricultural impact assessment. So the tree survey is the site works bit, and that only actually really forms probably about 30 to 40% of the work that's involved in putting the report together. So what will happen is a arboricultural consultant or a field consultant will head out to site, and hopefully they'll have a topographical map, a plan of where all the trees are on site that you will have provided to them. If not, on small sites we can use an ordnance survey tile and even drone aerial imagery to truth the positions of the trees, because accuracy is absolutely crucial in the reporting process. We really need to make sure that the tree positions are accurate, otherwise you'll get pushback from the local authority when it's assessed. So the surveyor will go out to site, and they'll basically capture data on each tree, group of trees, woodland, hedge feature on site, and all sorts of measurements will be picked up. They'll be looking at the height of the tree, they'll be looking at the crown spread of the tree, which basically means how far the branches extend out either side of the tree. They'll be looking at the crown height of the tree, so the height from ground level up to the lower branches of the trees, and also they'll be collecting a measurement of the stem diameter of the tree at chest height. It's called diameter at breast height, and the reason they do that is that we basically take a measurement from that, which gives us something called a root protection area, which is a big circle around the tree where if any development takes place, it's likely to have a negative effect on the tree. So that's what a root protection area is. So they're picking up all that information, and that information then comes back to the office and is cross-referenced with your proposals in order to produce the arboricultural impact assessment. Now, what some consultancies will do is at that stage, they'll carry out an impact assessment, they'll send it back to you, and they'll go, great news, George, here's your tree report. By the way, you can't build your building. What we tend to do at Rover is if we discover that there is conflict between the trees and the built footprint, we'll issue initial video feedback, similar to the video that you're watching at the moment on YouTube, if you are. And it just means that we can graphically and very easily explain exactly what's going on at the site. And from that point forwards, you can then alter the plans and make whatever changes you need to make in order to get that through planning. So that's what we do. Once that's been done, we'll then go on and finalise this report. So essentially, what does the report need to cover? Well, there are several things. It needs to have objective background information. It needs to have photographic records within the report, and the way that Rover does that is we have this initial front page here, which has got a unique project reference number, details of the site, details of the client. For those of you watching on YouTube, I've redacted it, and then we normally have a photographic plate that gives you a feel for the site, because what you have to remember is that when the tree officer is assessing these, they don't always have time to go out to site and look at the site themselves. So the more information you can give them, the more up-to-date information, the better, really. Otherwise, they'll be relying on Google Earth and Google Street View, which can be out of date. We then have a document control sheet, which is fairly self-explanatory. There's normally a summary then talking about exactly how the tree survey has been carried out, and you've probably heard of a term called BS 5837 2012. So that's the British standard that tree surveys essentially have to be carried out to. In addition to that, arboriculturalists have a couple of trade associations, one called the Arboricultural Association and the other one called the Institute of Chartered Foresters, and most consultants are a member of one or the other. You do get some consultancies that are members of the Arboricultural Association approved consultants scheme, although that's becoming of sort of less and less importance in my opinion as time goes on. So you've got your summary there. What do we have next? Well, we put in a validation statement for the local planning authority, so we try and make it absolutely crystal clear exactly what this report includes and what it doesn't include. So in the case of this one here, it includes a tree survey and a tree constraints plan, an arboricultural impact assessment, and appendices and the arboricultural data tables. And we also put customer action points in here because we try and make these as jargon free as we can. So the customer action point here is that the reporting is complete, send to your local planning authority. On planning award, contact us with your decision notice. And we'll talk about that in another video. We then have a table of contents, which is clickable to take you through to the next section. And then the first section that we have in our reports is the scope of works. It talks about the standard that the trees were inspected to, the time that they were inspected, in this case the 27th of March this year, and what techniques were used to assess those trees. We then have a section of photographic plates which graphically describes the trees that we refer to within the report. So this particular report says a photographic plate showing trees T1 to T4, which look like sycamores adjacent to a road. There's a number of other photographic plates there. And the other thing that we do at Rover as well, all our arboricultural and ecological consultants are trained drone pilots, and they have a small drone with them in the van or in the car with them, and that means that they're able to take photographs from the air to support these reports, and for things like bat roost assessments and stuff like that, it's really, really useful to get an angle that can't be seen from the ground. Site conditions and site surroundings. So this is where we identify who the local planning authority is, what the site looks like, what the site is at the moment, and we also do a desktop assessment to see whether the site is in a conservation area or whether there are any trees on or adjacent to the site protected by tree preservation orders. And we often post a direct link to that so that you as the customer can click through and have a look at that yourself. We also mention what that means to you in terms of what you can carry out to the trees and what you can't. And we also give you a little bit of background information on bats and how they have to be considered in relation to tree work, and birds as well, both of which are heavily protected under law. Section 3 then talks about the drawings. So we include with all our gold tree surveys, we have a tree constraints plan and a tree assessment plan. They should be fairly self-explanatory. More often than not, those drawings will be based on a AutoCAD drawing that you, the customer, has sent to us, and preferably a topographical survey as well. So we talk about that and what that all means. With our premium service, we also provide a tree protection plan and an arboricultural method statement, but I'll talk about that in another video to save confusing you. We then get into section 4, which is kind of the meat and potatoes of the report, really. So this is where we talk about the trees as they sit in the landscape at the moment, because the British Standard requests that we assess trees as they sit at the moment with no knowledge of the proposals. Now, often we do go to site with knowledge of the proposals, but we shouldn't let that influence our reporting or our decision making. So we have a tree quality statement, a description of the proposed development based on the information you send us, so it's crucial that you get that through to us. We then talk about trees potentially affected as well. So we go through on a tree by tree basis and highlight what any issues are. And then there are various other headings through the remainder of section 4. We talk about any tree removals, mitigation planting, impact on tree canopies, which is something a lot of people don't think about. If you can imagine deliveries to your site, it may be that there's big roof trusses coming in. Can they pass under any trees coming into site, or would tree tree pruning be required to get those lorries onto site. We talk about impacts on the tree roots, either direct or indirect. So direct would be excavation for foundation runs or service runs. Indirect might be compaction through access and egress to the site. We look at any new surfacing that is proposed that might affect trees. We look at underground services, any changes in ground levels. We talk about soil compaction, demolition activities, hazardous materials and how that can affect trees. We talk about the siting of cabins and site facilities. We talk about boundary treatment, so erecting fences and things around the site. How could that affect trees? We talk about the impact of retained trees on the development. So it may be that you're retaining a really nice tree, but let's say it's a lime tree, it's going to drop sappy residue and leaves all over people's windows. Is that tree going to come under pressure for unsympathetic pruning in the past? Because that in itself might be a reason for planning refusal. And then we have a summary. And after the summary, we then move into the appendix. That's my coffee, thank you, Carolyn, being delivered. We've then got an appendix here with various different headings talking about the background. We've then got report limitations, which you would expect, a site location plan, the arboricultural data tables. So this is actually in the wrong order, but you've got the arboricultural data tables and then the plans. So the data tables themselves, basically, I've done a podcast about this before. And if you're still with me, I'll try not to bore you to death, but we have a tree number, a unique identifier, which corresponds with the plan, with the species, the age class of the tree, the diameter at breast height, the height of the tree and the crown height, the crown spread of the tree to each cardinal point, the condition of the tree, remaining useful life expectancy, physical description, any comments, any management recommendations, the root protection areas and offset from the stem, and then a category rating for the tree. Generally speaking, category C and category U trees can be removed to facilitate development. Category B and category A trees are generally considered to be a constraint. And then we have a tree constraints plan towards the end of the report, which those of you watching the video can see. And basically that shows the centre point of the tree, a unique identifier for the tree. Then we've got the crown spread of the tree, which is often shown as a green circle, and then a pinky purple circle, which is the radial root protection area. So that's the tree constraints plan. Then we overlay the proposals. And this forms what's known as the tree assessment plan. And for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see on this particular example there aren't actually any constraints. The proposal sits clear of all the trees on site, so they can be retained and protected using harassed tree protection fencing throughout the development phase. So hopefully that has been helpful. So that is a tree survey and arboricultural impact assessment. That is the most basic level of tree report that you will require to support a planning application. If your site is more complex and you are likely to affect trees on site, your submission will also need to be supported by an arboricultural method statement and a tree protection plan. Sometimes that's conditioned on planning consent, but if you are going to be affecting trees, it's better to give that information up front and try and front load the application if you possibly can. So hopefully that's helpful. That is an explanation of our gold tree survey. If you've got any questions about a site that you need some guidance on, then you can reach out to me at support@rover-group.co.uk. That's support@rover-group.co.uk. Catch you next week.